Let's start, Jonathan, then. Thank you very much for agreeing for this interview. How are you doing today after your keynote speech?
I'm excited to be here in Poland with PMI because I think about the organizations that have the spread, right? The breadth to literally change business culture, to change the world, to improve society. And how many organizations really are out there touching every large company in the world, every large construction project, infrastructure project, banking project, technology project. There is no one else. It is PMI. You are the group that changes the world.
Yeah, that's true. I couldn't say it better, and I am from PMI. So yeah, thank you for that. I know you haven't been long in Poland, but is there anything that surprised you when you come here?
It's not a surprise, but it's a joy that the humility and kindness of Polish people.
That's great to hear. Yeah, great. All right, so with humility and kindness, let me ask some questions about yourself and your book. Let's start with what you do for a living. You're many things, but what strikes me and what I want to ask you is the consultancy part.
Yeah.
So what is most rewarding and what is most challenging about that role, with working with companies?
The challenges that organizations face today about surviving, thriving in a world that will be dramatically different than they're planning for is terrifying for executives, it's terrifying for leaders, but it's also really hard for teams that are trying to execute against an ambiguous plan. And yet these are the challenges that we face as project managers, as project leaders.
Yeah.
And to me, the breakthrough that organizations have is that people lower in the organization as we flatten our organizations, as we have to give people lower in the organization larger decision rights, is that we need to build critical thinking, we need to build power skills, we need to build all of those things that PMI and Brightline talk about much lower in the organization, much earlier in their career. And creating a celebration of that in organizations is often the challenging bit because they don't see the world they're building into. And what project managers need to be able to do in that new world.
Yeah, I can only agree. Yeah, as a follow-up then, is there any particular, to quote your title of your book, is there any particular rogue wave you would share with us, you challenged, you mastered?
That I've mastered?
Yes, you've beaten it. It come to you and you rode it, let's say.
So many. I mean...
that I bet.
The challenge for me in life has been that I've lived a life of doing new projects, new project types, new challenging things that I didn't know how to do. And the book is kind of an attempt to explain to my 25-year-old self, what is it that would have made things easier, more successful, less painful, more reliable. And it's about taking those skills that you learn as a senior leader and starting to embed those into junior leaders and into subject matter experts. Because as we see the world in the face of artificial intelligence, what we see is not a future where the people at the top understand what's going on. It's a world where the people at the bottom need to coordinate and make decisions, which means that they need to have the systems, the culture, the ability to think through things. I think about so many of the projects that I've done, and unfortunately most of it's in innovation and invention, so a lot of it's under under NDA and lock and key.
Maybe let me, I know it's a nitpicky question from everything you just said, but this part about explaining your experience to your younger self.
Yeah.
Well, I think everyone that has done some project would like to do that. Yeah, but if you could, one sentence or two,
Yeah.
what would you say to your younger self exactly, summarizing all of this?
3 things.
Yeah.
Take the time to become aware of the situation around you. There are people who understand the larger system. Trust me, they want to help explain it to you. So it's about awareness,
Yeah.
understanding the larger system. Also understanding that those people who want to explain it to you understand that system 20 years ago. And so you need to update your knowledge. You can't trust it. So becoming aware of what's going on in the environment around you. 2, developing the behaviors that you need to take advantage of that, to both understand and to take advantage of that change. So learning how to develop research programs that are effective, learning how to build risk management programs that are effective so that you can build portfolios of innovation that allow you to deliver on time and on budget, independent of whether any individual component breaks down.
Yeah.
And then the last piece is focusing on culture. So we talked about awareness, we talked about behavior. The third piece is about culture. How do you create a culture where people are able to talk about things that they don't yet understand, to talk about, to take risks for which there are all of the standard operating procedures and the metrics and the tools and the rules they don't apply? And how do you create a safe space for people to do that? And you don't need to be a leader you don't need to be an executive to do that. You can talk to your leader and do the same thing that you would do as a leader. You can ask for those things. One of the biggest ones I talk about is risk bands in the book. This idea of what is the most or what is the least amount of risk you want me to take. Right? Because as leaders, we are so overwhelmed. We walk into situations, we don't think about what we're actually asking people to do, how it ties into everything else they're doing. And so we come in and we either say, do this, and I want you to just shoot for the moon, and then you shoot for the moon, and then we come back and we're like, what, like, remind me what you were thinking? Or we ask people to, we don't explain how little risk is acceptable, right? So we want to talk about this idea of risk bands. What is the most and what is the least amount of risk that I want you to take in a project, in a program? You can ask your boss that. And if your boss does not answer that, you need to explain to your boss that he's causing risk on himself.
Yeah,
it's an uncomfortable situation.
It is.
But it is only fair to you and to them that you understand what they will back and that they understand what they're signing up for.
Yeah, exactly. And just to quote PMI to answer to that, we switched a bit in our PMI's approach as well. We are creating change makers and teaching them to create a ripple effect. So that's exactly what you said. So we were aligned again on that.
Well, I mean, much of what I do was inspired by a PMI trained project manager named Jose Llano at HP, at Hewlett-Packard. And what I learned from him is that there are easy ways to manage projects that dramatically decrease risk, even if you don't know what's happening next. And so a lot of the things that PMI talks about portfolio project management, linking agile and kind of older school Six Sigma things with continuous delivery and disciplined agile. They're things I very much believe in, and they're foundations of this book.
That's great to hear. All right. I was meaning to ask you a few questions about the book. But you've covered them, so we'll improvise in a moment.
Okay.
You mentioned obviously AI, obviously security. So should I be worried when I'm not saying thank you to the self-register cash at my local store? Will they take over the world?
I, first of all, have found that saying thank you to devices puts me in a place of love. Puts me in a place where I am a better human. And so I think it's actually just a good practice for being a better leader, for being a better human. In terms of what the interests of machines are, you know, they aren't yet prescient about those sorts of things.
So there's time.
I'm thinking about this. But there is something that's really interesting when you talk to a large language model and you say, this is really important to me. I really want to. It actually improves its performance.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating.
That is fascinating, yeah. Yeah, I've dealt a bit with some AI tools. Recently I've been preparing some slides and I wanted to create images for the slides, you know. Not to deal with trademarks. And I use Midjourney. Yeah. And when you put the prompt in a specific way, stressing what is important, as you said, produce vastly different results. Yeah.
It really is. It really is interesting, and like occasionally I'll get over the top, and I'm like, the world will end and children will die.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is sometimes these tools will get snarky back, and they'll be like, I don't believe you.
Exactly. The amount of times that my Siri was snarky to me because I wanted tell me a joke.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Last question just to you before we jump into the publication itself. If you wouldn't be working in the line of work that you do right now, what would you do?
Oh.
Would you stay in the field that you studied? Do you?
Well, I'm an industrial designer by training.
Yeah.
I think looking back, there wasn't another path. I mean, this is what I do. I'm interested in large systems, how we understand them, how we live in them, and how to help people be more comfortable in ambiguity, how we can create processes that allow people to be comfortable in situations that they normally wouldn't be.
Yeah.
And there's so much room to do that in our businesses, in our societies, in our families. And that's, I think, the number one thing we can do to improve our performance as a species is create our comfort with an ability to take risk.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And seeing you on the stage delivering keynote speech, I have to agree, you are in the right place on that stage. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right, so let's jump into the publication itself.
Okay.
So we've covered why you've written that as a manual for yourself, your younger self, and to teach others about that. Do you find, to again build on the title, do you find that as a society we are ready, getting ready, or we are completely unprepared to the rogue waves incoming? A bit of philosophical question, I guess.
I guess the question is, does it matter? Like, we are where we are, we will do what we will do. I had a head of strategy at my firm who was a captain in the U.S. Special Forces. He's really smart, very scary guy. And I would complain about these things. Our people aren't good enough, they aren't fast enough, they aren't smart enough. And he turned to me and he said, you go to war with the army you have, not the army you want. So when I take a look at our species today, our people today, they are better, they are more embodied, they are more skilled, they are smarter than ever in human history. This is the best time, this is the most prepared we have ever been for the changes in front of us.
Right. And then we'll be even better prepared after reading your book, if someone hasn't already.
You're right, you're screwed if you don't.
and that's the best summary, but we are not wrapping up yet. I would like to ask you in a few sentences, or 20 if you want, why someone who is not exactly a project manager working, well, mostly in IT, as I am thinking of it. Apologies. Why someone should read your book?
If you believe that the world is becoming more uncertain, that it's becoming more difficult to plan for the 5-year future than it's ever been,
Yeah.
in your business, in your family, in your life, if you want to teach your kids how to do these things, this is the single best book on how to thrive under uncertainty that I think is out there.
I've read it. I agree. So I guess that's the best pitch you could have. And just a fun little question. Let's say, let's play marketer in this game. If you right now we're putting a post on Instagram, and we are advertising a book. 3 hashtags you would put.
You're the marketer.
I have my pick.
What would you say? I love it.
Innovation, change, be prepared.
Yes.
Would you agree?
I love it. I think I would. I think the book's really about the insight that we can't know the future, but we can know the range of things that are likely to happen. And as a result, we can make small decisions, manageable decisions, that dramatically improve our leverage, our ability to take advantage of those situations, as opposed to react and respond and hope.
Yeah.
So it's about the ability to take control by accepting that we don't have it.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Actually, we've wrapped up everything that I wanted to ask you. Is there anything you would like to share with us in closing?
Just how inspired I am by PMI, by how inspired I am by the people who make the world run, that help us all do these things, keep the trains moving, build the future, and how important it is that project managers are building their ability to take advantage of uncertainty, to lean into change instead of avoiding it.
That's perfectly said. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for this interview. Thank you very much for being here,
Yeah.
for delivering an amazing, inspiring keynote speech. And yeah, everyone should buy and read your book.
Absolutely.
Rogue Waves by Jonathan Brill. Thank you very much.
Thank you.